Whether you hire someone, that's money, or you do it yourself, that's time, which is money. You need to make sure that you're putting as much focus as possible on the things that are most likely to work. Hey there, Happy New Year, Happy 2023. I probably shouldn't announce that too loudly. We probably want to be sneaking in gently on 2023 and hoping we don't scare off all the good vibes. But I am so excited that we're here. I think we all are. Anyway, you are listening to Content About Content. It's a podcast which is content, and we're talking about content so that you can feel more content about creating your own content. And that's a tongue twister, so I probably won't say that again. We're here to help you feel more confident and in charge of everything to do with content for you, for your business, for your clients, anyone you create content for. I'm your host, Jen Robson. I'm the founder of Engage Agency, which is the content agency. And you're probably wondering, why am I the one to be telling you about content? You've never heard of me, and that's absolutely fair. So Jennifer Robson, as I said, but you can call me Jen. I've been working in content for more than 20 years now, which dates me quite a bit. When I got started, content really wasn't much more than ads. It was instruction manuals that came with the things that you bought, like your vacuum cleaners. It was a placement in the yellow pages. It was brochures in the letterbox, flyers, business cards, bus back ads, billboards, all those things. Today, as you know, content is so much more. It's still those things, but we are a growing industry, massive in comparison to when I got started, and all businesses today do need to be focusing on content. There was a study run a couple of years ago. I'm trying to think who it was from. I'll put a note in the podcast notes, but it found that 87% of consumers today expect brands to be producing content, not just products and services. To be honest, I'd expect that to be even higher for B2B customers. And the thing is that people are looking for more before they buy, before they hand over their money. They're looking for more after they buy and after they've handed over their money too. And especially for larger purchases and from those brands they're giving loyalty to, that they're paying more than once. Brands that want them to be repeat purchases, they are the ones that need to be really stepping up their content game. If you think about all of the different ways that content goes out there and all the different ways that people interact with brands these days, that's hugely different to what it was 20 years ago. There wasn't 20 years ago the idea that you went up to a business and asked them what their values were. You just didn't have that ability to do that 20 years ago. Today you do. Today we're looking at asking businesses to be who we want them to be, to reflect our own values and to demonstrate that. And we do that with content. We do a lot with content. So the question here, I guess, is what is content? To make it really, really plain and simple, content's anything you can read, you can listen to, or you can watch. Anything that falls into that category. Businesses can totally change who they are and where they are and grab new customers through the use of content. I want to take an example here. If we think about food storage containers, they've been around for decades. Think of all the Tupperware parties. But they don't sound very sexy, do they? Even Tupperware parties never really sounded very sexy, even if they were serving wine and giggles and all the rest. But the leaders in the industry today have, thanks largely to influencers and content creators, made their plastic boxes super desirable for their target audience. I'll admit, personally, I'm a bit of a pantry porn addict myself. It's kind of crazy because I hate cooking. I never ever bake. But it's all about the Instagram worthiness of your kitchen, but also about taking care of yourself, eating better, looking like you're owning this adulting thing. And it feels a lot to ask of a storage container. But if you scroll through your social feed, do a quick search if it's not popping up for you, you'll find reels of people packing their food, storing things beautifully. It's got a real ASMR vibe to it. There's tips on how to store different foods, making sure that they last longer, what to wash, how to cook different ingredients, what to do with leftovers for sustainability or for getting more bang for your buck. There's meal ideas, lunchbox tips, even, ASMR is all there built into their strategies. The fingernails wrapping on the plastic, all exciting. So these storage boxes, food storage boxes, are no longer just about keeping food fresh longer. Through the use of this content, they've been made to be about living your best life. And that's been done with content. The containers themselves, they've not fundamentally changed in the past 50 or 60 years. But the way we look at them has. They're far more than Tupperware. They are a symbol for who we are, what we do, how we live. And that's saying so much for a food storage container, a little plastic box. There's a saying when it comes to writing that no one wants a hammer. They want a painting on their wall. And it's the same across all products and services, whether for consumers or businesses. It's not what you sell, but what you sell delivers. And that story, it needs to be told. It needs to be something that resonates with customers everywhere. It resonates with people who are looking to be part of your brand through viewing and seeing you, considering you, and also converting and becoming customers and ongoing customers. So content has a place across all phases of the buyer journey, from discovery to awareness, from consideration to conversion, from acquisition to activation, to use, loyalty, and retention. And there are endless opportunities to pursue and strategies you can implement to support each phase. But let's face it, creating content takes time and it takes money. So the key to good content is about working out what works for you. So it's about researching, pondering, questioning, trying. It is about failing and trying again. There's a whole lot of different content that you can be delivering to do that, and that you will need to actually be delivering to do that. And there's all these different specialties in content today that you will need to be drawing on for different aspects of that buyer journey. So we'll be looking throughout the course of this podcast, we'll be looking at, what is copywriting? And the copywriting is the piece that comes in when you're looking at the real conversion focused content for your site or for any other content that you deliver to help people make a purchase. That's copywriting. We'll be looking at content marketing, which is more about the nurturing, the awareness, and the consideration phases of the buyer journey, helping people understand who you are, what you do, and thinking about, maybe they need that. Maybe they need that from you. There's also content design, which is what comes in with more product services based, more SaaS based businesses. You'll see that across any online website where there's a servicing portal or online system, software, all of that, all of the little pieces. People sometimes call it micro copy. It's the little pieces of copy that comes up that helps guide people to better conversion rates, helps them get from point A to point B. It's the content that you see in apps. So that's content design. We'll be talking about that later too. There's also technical writing, which is still a thing and still will be there for ages. That tends to be more of the instruction manual / technical documentation, developer documentation pieces that you see around the place. I'm not very experienced in technical writing, so I'll see if I can find someone to bring in to talk to us about that one day. We've also got content strategy, and there are two different parts to content strategy, and everyone calls it the same thing, so you need to be very aware of what you're talking about. So content strategy is, if we're talking about content marketing strategy, usually that is more thinking about your campaigns and how to deliver cross-channel to different audiences to generate the best responses, or whether that's conversion, whether that's purchasing, whether that's brand awareness, all of those different pieces, that can be a content strategy. I try to call it a content marketing strategy just to differentiate. Then there's also pure content strategy, which is more about the governance of content. It's about, setting up the style guides and working out in what formats things should be in, how should we be using content, which platforms should we be on, how do we interact on those individual platforms. Do we use title case or sentence case or all caps in our buttons? That's where the content strategy comes in, but it's also more about the governance of pieces as well. It's about setting your brand voice. It's about deciding who owns content within an organization, who has final say and control, who maintains content and when and how often are things updated, what's the approval process, how many people does it need to go through, what's the retention process, all of those things, and what publishing platforms are you using, whether that's a content management system, well, it will be a content management system, but whether it's a simple one like WordPress or something an awful lot more complex for your business, and whether it also includes content authoring systems or CAT tools for localization, and what tools and how that works. So that's what content strategy is. Often it may, not often, sometimes it includes internationalization and globalization pieces as well, thinking about which markets to go into, how to go into them, and how the development cycle of content goes when you go into localization translation for different markets and countries. So that's that. And then obviously you have content support content that sometimes falls under content marketing, sometimes not. That's your help centers, that's your FAQs. Sometimes it's your servicing emails or your customer support emails, things that go out when people query and have issues. That's another specialty as well, but often that is also covered by content marketing. Not always, but sometimes. And finally, we have localization, which is another important piece for global companies today, and any company looking to acquire or work with customers around the world. And there's localization not just in translation. So localization has kind of 3 levels of specialties in it. I talk about localization generally, but other people may talk about translation. You may also hear the term transcreation. So let me quickly go through those. Translation is pretty much that. It's translating pretty much word for word what you have. You don't think about who the audience is. You have the original copy in the source language, whether it's English or something else, and you translate it as is, verbatim, to meet the market. Then you have localization, which takes into account cultural differences. And so you can localize differently for different markets that speak the same language. So some of the more savvy global companies will do English to English localization, for example, so that you have those differences, not just in grammar and spelling from the US to Australia or Australia to the UK or to Singapore or wherever. You also have that cultural understanding in there. That's particularly important for businesses like financial services businesses, where the concept of money and how money is managed can change quite dramatically based on local governance and local laws and regulations. Then finally, you have transcreation. And transcreation is usually where you're actually creating content at the same time for multiple languages. It's not using one as a basis and building on that. It's really going, let's make sure everything is absolutely focused on the target market and the audience in that market, and let's build from scratch for that. Obviously, that's the most expensive and the most time-consuming way to go. But if you really care about getting the absolutely right message all the time, then that's the way to go. So there's a lot of different things to be talking about when it comes to content, and that's what I'm here to help you with. Over the past 20 years, I've worked in most of those disciplines for big companies and small, mostly big though. I've worked in the university sector here in Australia in education, and I have also worked for big global corporations. Some of my clients today include PayPal, for instance, Adobe, and Grab, which is like the Uber of Southeast Asia, but then Uber on speed. It does everything from ride-sharing food deliveries to investment in cryptocurrency, insurance, and a whole lot more. So I have those experiences working in content design, in content marketing, in copywriting, in content for customer service, content strategy, localization, and more. And so that's what I'm here to help you with. So I was recently asked this little question: if a business today can exist without content? So I'm going to say yes, it can, which might shock some people. But I'm also going to say it's a really rare business that does, and its growth opportunities are limited by its customers. And that's because without content, you're relying on active referrals alone. You're not there asking for referrals. You're not there encouraging. You're just hoping that people will be making those referrals. If you look at even the micro businesses out there today, I have a guy who comes and mows my lawn every fortnight, for instance. He works on his own, he's a sole trader, comes, mows my lawn, he does some gardens for some people, and even he uses some content to grow. He has a Google My Business listing, for instance. He has business cards. He's got a Facebook page that he uses for awareness and building loyalty. It's very subtle. He doesn't put a lot of energy into it. He just posts photos of the work that he's done. When he got a new van, he posted photos of that. And it gets people interested. And it gets people looking and thinking what he can do for them. Oh, that garden looks amazing. What can he do for me? And I just discovered over Christmas that he also has branded stubby holders that he gives out to his customers to improve retention and also less active referrals. I was pretty excited by that because I've never had a stubby holder. Probably a bit strange for someone Australian to say in particular, but I haven't. And so I've now got a stubby holder that says Clever Green. So it's a less active referral piece there. It's a reminder of who he is. But it's also if I have someone over for dinner and I hand them a beer in the stubby holder, they think, oh, I need a new lawn guy. Is he any good? It's the right time, it's the right place, and it's a real-time review from someone you trust, and it's inspired by content. Maybe it's not real-time and right there, but adds that seed in their mind. Oh, Jen's got a lawn guy. Maybe I'll ask her who she uses. And so it brings out those little referral opportunities. It's not very active, but it's there and it's done through content. So my lawn guy, his name's Harold, his approach to content isn't really thought out. He's not sitting there planning and strategizing about what he's going to do to increase his referrals and increase his retention of customers. And for his business, that's okay. He's a one-man band and he has a full roster of loyal clients already. He doesn't want to grow and become this super business that has dozens of lawnmower guys underneath him. He never wants to be that multinational piece. He just wants to get his job done, enjoy what he does, get paid for a good job, and he knows, because of the way he's built his business based primarily on relationship, if he ever gets a blank spot in his calendar, he just needs to say to one of his clients, hey, do you know someone who needs me? And chances are, they will. They'll suggest. I've suggested people to him. I've said, hey, I know someone who needs you. And he said, sorry, I don't have any time. It's not based on content, but the content that he does produce helps ensure that he does get those customers that actually want to be working with him, that want to continue working with him and grow with him, who want to support him. So his model, it's not content based. His model is based on consistency and people, but the content does support that. And he does recognize that. So if he did want to grow, what would that look like? Well, it would look like, most likely, like if he wanted to grow, he could grow organically the way he is going now, bring someone under him. But if he wanted to grow faster and get someone full time under him fairly quickly, content would be the right place for him to start. That would mean things like building out a website so that he seems more credible, building out perhaps some flyers to drop by people's letterboxes, especially if he notices someone new moving into an area, into a street he already services. This house goes for sale or a rental sign gets taken down, drop a brochure in there, a flyer in there. It could be heading back to his Facebook, building on his Instagram, maybe even doing some TikToks, or just growing his presence on Google My Business, or building out a website that is more than just legitimacy, but also SEO and building in that local search opportunities. But what kind of content that he does need, well, that's the fun part. Working that out for each individual business, that's the fun part. It does involve a lot of trial and error. It involves testing, realizing that things just aren't working, and pivoting, trying something else. But I'm here to help you make it a little less difficult, to see the pros and cons of different pieces, to see what other businesses have done, to find out what works for them, to find out how you can actually get some strategy and some analysis and some ideas behind what it is that you're doing before you do it. Because let's face it, it's not just the time of putting effort into building that content and the money of that as well. Whether you hire someone, that's money, or you do it yourself, that's time, which is money. You need to make sure that you're putting as much focus as possible on the things that are most likely to work, which means putting that time into getting that strategy sorted out and making sure that you are fairly confident that it's the right way to go. And that's what we are here for. So if you ever have any questions, just drop a comment and ask, or send us an email. I'd love to hear from you. I'd love to see what we can do to help you out through this fun journey. We're going to go back to the basics of marketing through this podcast. We're going to be looking at what do you do, why do you do it, who do you do it for, and more importantly, who do you not serve? We're going to be looking at what you're delivering right now, what your content is, what your content needs to be, how you can refine it, reuse it, repurpose it, make it better, and make sure that it's working as it is right now. We'll be looking at all the different specialties out there, as I mentioned before, the content design, the content strategy, the copywriting, the technical writing, the customer service content, localization, translation, transcreation, content marketing strategy, all of the things. And I'm sure we'll be covering an awful lot more along the way. I will try to keep things brief because your time is your most precious resource after all, but we'll be doing our best to drop by your inbox or your podcast feed with new episodes each week. Anyway, if you enjoyed this episode or learned something new, please do take a moment to subscribe, share, leave us a review. Might be a bit early for that, but feel free. I'd love to hear and answer all your questions, as I said. So hit us up and let's get you feeling content about content.